weight of shadows. Have you ever stood at the edge of a storm, where the winds howl with such fury that they seem to tear at the very fabric of your soul? Imagine a man, not unlike you or me, standing in such a tempest, not of weather, but of his own making. His name was Tsering, a wanderer of the rugged Tibetan highlands, whose life began in shadow, stained by choices that would haunt him like whispers in the night. Yet, within this tale of darkness lies a spark, a promise that even the deepest wounds can lead to the brightest awakening. What could transform a man who walked the path of destruction into one who touched the stars of enlightenment? Stay with me, for Tsering's journey is not just his own. It is a mirror for us all. In a village cradled by jagged peaks, where the air was thin and the winters cruel, Tsering was born to a family of modest means but boundless ambition. His mother, a weaver of intricate tapestries, dreamed her son would rise above their humble station. His father, a trader, saw in Tsering's sharp eyes the cunning to command wealth. But ambition, unchecked, is a fire that consumes. As a young man, Tsering's heart burned with a hunger for power, fueled by a world that seemed to reward only the ruthless. And so, he stepped into that world, his hands soon stained with axe that turned the village whispers into cries of fear. A theft here, a betrayal there, each choice a stone added to the weight he carried, though he did not yet feel its burden. Can you sense it? The moment when a single step sets a life on a path from which there seems no return, but the universe, in its infinite wisdom, does not abandon its children, even those who stray. Tsering's deeds caught the attention of more than just his village. They reached the ears of a sage, a master named Kunga, whose presence was said to calm even the wildest storms. Kunga was no ordinary teacher. His eyes held the depth of 1,000 lives, and his words could pierce the heart like an arrow finding its mark. When Tsering, now a man feared and shunned, stumbled into Kunga's remote hermitage, driven by desperation and a flicker of remorse, the sage did not turn him away. Instead, he looked upon Tsering as if seeing not the man before him, but the man he could become. What is it about such a gaze that makes one feel both exposed and cherished? Kunga's first words to Tsering were simple, yet searing. You have built a prison with your hands, but only your heart can set you free. Now, let us pause and consider, what would you do if faced with such a truth? Tsering, hardened by years of defiance, felt the ground shift beneath him. Kunga offered no easy forgiveness, no soothing platitudes. Instead, he presented Tsering with a challenge, a series of tasks so grueling they seemed designed to break him. If you seek redemption, Kunga said, you must climb the mountain of your own making. And so began Tsering's trials, each one a mirror reflecting his past, forcing him to confront the pain he had caused. He was tasked with carrying stones up a steep cliff, only to watch them roll back down. Day after day, his body ached, his spirit wavered, yet something within him stirred, a longing he could not name. Have you ever felt that pull, that quiet voice urging you towards something greater, even when every fiber of your being resists? As Tsering toiled, the villagers who once cursed his name began to whisper of his labors. Some mocked, others wondered. Could a man so steeped in shadow truly change? Kunga, ever watchful, offered no answers, only guidance wrapped in riddles. The stone you carry is not the burden, he would say, but the thought that it defines you. With each step, Tsering's past seemed to unravel, thread by thread, revealing not just his crimes, but the fears and desires that drove them. The anger that once fueled him began to fade, replaced by a curiosity about the path Kunga walked, a path of stillness, of compassion, of seeing the world not as a battleground, but as a tapestry of interconnected lives. Can you imagine it? The moment when the world you thought you knew begins to shift, revealing a truth that both terrifies and entices. This is where the heart of Tsering's story begins to pulse. The trials were not mere punishment, they were a forging, a refining of a man who had lost himself. Kunga's teachings, rooted in the ancient wisdom of the Buddha, spoke of impermanence, of the fleeting nature of all things, anger, sorrow, even the self. Tsering began to see his life not as a chain of mistakes, but as a fleeting dance of moments, each one an opportunity to choose anew. The stones he carried became lighter, not because they changed, but because he did. His desire grew, not for power, but for understanding, for a peace that could withstand any storm. And yet, the path was far from complete. The mountain still loomed, and Kunga's final challenge awaited, one that would demand everything Tsering had left. Will you follow him to the next step to see what lies beyond the horizon of his pain? Tsering's story is not just a tale of one man, it is a call to each of us. The Buddhist path teaches that suffering is universal, but so is the potential for awakening. Tsering's trials remind us that our own burdens, be they guilt, fear, or doubt, can become the very stepping stones to liberation. If you feel the stirrings of his journey in your own heart, take a breath and ask, what mountain am I climbing, and what might I discover at its peak? Let Tsering's story linger with you, for the next steps of his path will reveal not just his destiny, but a truth that could light your own, the song of the river. What does it mean to stand at the edge of yourself, where every step forward feels like a leap into the unknown? Tsering, sweat-soaked and weary, stood on such a precipice, his hands calloused from endless stones, his heart raw from the truths Kunga's teachings had begun to unearth. The mountain loomed higher still, its peak shrouded in mist, as if daring him to continue. Yet something had shifted within him, a spark of clarity that flickered like a star in the vast night sky. Could this man, once a storm of rage, truly find peace in the stillness of surrender? Hold fast to this moment, for Tsering's path is about to twist in ways that will pull you closer, urging you to see what lies beyond the veil of his struggle. The days of carrying stones had carved not just Tsering's hands, but his spirit. Kunga, ever the silent guide, now called him to a new task, one that seemed deceptively simple yet pierced deeper than any labor before. Go to the valley, Kunga said, his voice steady as the earth, and sit with the river. Listen until you hear its song. Tsering, expecting another grueling ordeal, felt a flicker of confusion. A river? A song? He had expected pain, not poetry. But as he descended the rocky slopes to the valley below, the weight of Kunga's words settled into him. Have you ever noticed how the simplest instructions can carry the heaviest truths? The river was a silver thread weaving through the valley, its waters swift and relentless, yet serene in their endless flow. Tsering sat by its banks, the cold earth beneath him, and tried to listen. At first, he heard only the roar of his own thoughts, memories of his past deeds, the faces of those he had wronged, the gnawing doubt that he could ever be more than his mistakes. Hours passed, then days. The river's voice seemed mute, or perhaps he was deaf to it. Frustration clawed at him, tempting him to flee back to the familiar chaos of his old ways. But Kunga's gaze, though miles away, seemed to linger in his mind, steady and unyielding. The river speaks, Kunga had said, but only to those who forget themselves. Can you feel it? The pull to let go, to listen beyond the noise of your own heart. As Tsering sat, something began to shift. The river's rush softened into a rhythm, a pulse that seemed to echo the breath of the world itself. He noticed how the water danced over stones, never clinging, never resisting, simply flowing. In its movement, he saw his own life, his anger, his greed, his pain, all rushing forward, yet none of it permanent. The Buddhist teachings Kunga shared began to take root. All things arise and pass like ripples on the water. Tsering's heart stirred with a longing he had never known, not for power or escape, but for the freedom to flow as the river did, unburdened by the chains of his past. Have you ever glimpsed such a truth, only to feel it slip through your fingers like water? But the river was only the beginning. Kunga, sensing Tsering's awakening, summoned him back to the hermitage with a new challenge: to rebuild a crumbling stupa, stone by stone, alone. The task was daunting, the stupa's ancient stones heavy with the prayers of countless generations. Each stone Tsering lifted felt like a piece of his own history, each placement an act of offering. As he worked, villagers began to gather, their whispers no longer laced with fear, but with curiosity. Some brought food, others sat in silence, watching a man they once despised labor for something greater than himself. Tsering felt their eyes, but Kunga's teachings anchored him. Act without attachment to praise or blame, for both are fleeting. The stupa rose, imperfect but whole, and with it, Tsering's heart began to mend. Can you see it? The moment when your own efforts, however small, begin to reshape the world around you? Yet, the path to awakening is never without its shadows. One night, as the stupa neared completion, Tsering dreamed of his past victims, their faces vivid, their voices accusing. He awoke trembling, the weight of his guilt threatening to crush the fragile peace he had found. He sought Kunga at dawn, his voice breaking. How can I move forward when my past clings to me? Kunga's reply was a single question. Does the river carry yesterday's water? Those words struck Tsering like a bell, resonating through the chambers of his soul. The Buddhist path, he realized, was not about erasing the past, but about releasing its hold, moment by moment. His desire for liberation deepened, not as a distant dream, but as a fire burning within, urging him to keep walking, to keep listening. What would you do with such a question? One that asks you to let go of the weight you've carried for so long. Tsering's journey was now a bridge between who he was and who he could become. The river had taught him to flow, the stupa to build, but Kunga's final challenge loomed. A trial that would test not just his body or mind, but the very essence of his being. The villagers, now whispering of miracles, watched as Tsering prepared to face the unknown. His story, like the river, flows onward, pulling us with it. Will you stay with him to discover what lies at the heart of his transformation? For in Tsering's steps, you may find echoes of your own path, a call to release what binds you and embrace the boundless possibility of now, the peak within. What does it mean to face the truth of your own heart, to stand before a mirror that reveals not just your face, but the eternity within you? Tsering, now a man transformed, yet still tethered to the echoes of his past, stood at the threshold of his final trial. The stupa he had rebuilt gleamed under the Himalayan sun, a testament to his labor, but Kunga's eyes held a challenge far greater than stone or river. To find peace, the sage said, you must climb the peak within. The words hung in the air, heavy with promise and peril. What could such a climb demand, and what might it reveal? Stay with me, for Tsering's final steps will draw you into a truth that resonates beyond the mountains, into the very core of your being. Kunga led Tsering to a cave, high on the cliffs where the wind sang of ancient secrets. Sit here, he instructed, and face the silence until it speaks. No stones to carry, no river to hear, only the vast emptiness of the cave and the uncharted depths of Tsering's mind. As he sat, the world fell away, leaving him alone with his breath, his thoughts, his fears. At first, the silence was a torment. Memories surged, his crimes, his victims, the boy he once was, dreaming of greatness. Each thought was a storm, threatening to drown him. But Kunga's teachings, rooted in the Buddha's wisdom, echoed, "Observe the mind, for it is the maker of all things." Have you ever sat with your own silence, only to find it louder than any storm? Days bled into nights, and Tsering's resistance began to crumble. In the cave's darkness, he saw not just his past, but the impermanence of all things, his anger, his guilt, even his identity as Tsering, the sinner. The Buddhist path revealed itself not as a destination, but as a letting go, a release of the stories that bind us. As he meditated, a warmth grew within him, not from the cave, but from his own heart, a light that needed no name. He saw his victims not as accusers, but as teachers, their pain a mirror of his own, their existence woven into the same tapestry of life. Compassion, unbidden, rose like a tide. Can you imagine it? The moment when the walls you've built around your heart begin to dissolve, revealing a boundless love. When Tsering emerged, the villagers sensed a change. His eyes, once shadowed, now held a quiet radiance. Kunga, waiting at the cave's mouth, offered no praise, only a nod. "You have seen," he said, "but seeing is not enough. Now live it." Tsering's final task was not a task at all. It was a call to return to the world, to carry the light he had found into the lives of others. He walked back to the village, not as the man who had harmed, nor even as the man who had rebuilt the stupa, but as one who had glimpsed the truth, that all beings are bound by suffering, and all are capable of liberation. The villagers, once his judges, now approached with questions, their hearts stirred by his transformation. Have you ever witnessed a change so profound it shifts the air around you, urging you to seek your own awakening? Tsering began to teach, not with grand words but with simple acts, sharing food, listening to sorrows, offering kindness where he once sowed pain. Each gesture was a prayer, each moment a meditation. The Buddhist path, he realized, was not about escaping the world, but embracing it fully, seeing every encounter as a chance to practice compassion, wisdom, and presence. The village transformed with him, its whispers turning to songs of hope. Yet Tsering knew his journey was not over. It never truly ends. The peak within, as Kunga taught, is climbed anew each day with each breath. What would it mean for you to take such a step, to live each moment as an offering to the world? Now, as Tsering's story draws to a close, let it linger in your heart. His path, from darkness to light, from isolation to connection, mirrors the potential within us all. The Buddha's teachings remind us that suffering is not our destiny, it is a call to awaken. Tsering's climb was his own, yet it speaks to you, to me, to anyone who has ever felt the weight of their choices. Feel the desire stirring within you, the desire to release what binds you, to seek the silence that speaks, to live with a heart open to all beings. Will you act on it? Take a breath right now and ask, what is my next step? Let Tsering's journey be your guide, not to a distant peak, but to the boundless present, where every moment is a chance to begin anew.